Hi, everyone, and welcome to Founder Wednesdays, a regular stream where we talk to fashion entrepreneurs and founders of direct-to-consumer brands about building sustainable, profitable, and stronger businesses. Today, we are joined by Nancy and Eileen, founders of Cucumber Clothing, a UK-based fashion brand that is all about local manufacturing, timeless designs, and conscious fashion. In this conversation, we talk about building local manufacturing and supporting local communities, the impact Brexit has on fashion businesses in the UK, building strong founder relationship and cultivating those relationships while staying authentic to yourself and avoiding personal burnout. So if you're interested, please tune in, and I hope you enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for inviting us.
How is everything going in the UK?
Well, do you know what? I actually think people feel quite hopeful at the moment because we've been given a roadmap to freedom, and the vaccination program's rolling out pretty well.
Yeah.
So aside from all the chaos from the pandemic originally, and obviously a bit more chaos around Brexit, I think people are feeling quite hopeful, even though it's raining quite a bit.
And I think also because we've got this roadmap that hopefully doesn't mean we have to go out and in the whole time. So it's just moving forward rather forward, backwards, which is always difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what a lot of people are really craving these days, just some sort of clarity. Yeah, exactly. Well, for everyone who is joining us now, thank you so much and welcome to Founder Wednesdays. It's a regular stream where we talk to fashion entrepreneurs and founders of direct-to-consumer brands about building sustainable, profitable, and stronger businesses. And today I'm very, very happy to welcome Nancy and Eileen, who are the founders of Cucumber Clothing, a fashion brand out of the UK that is all about local manufacturing, all about conscious fashion and sustainability. So welcome one more time, and thank you so much for taking the time this evening.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so what I would like to start with is to get a little bit of an insight of how you actually ended up starting the business brand. And I think one of the interesting things is that you two have known each other for 20-something years. So tell me how this friendship turned into a partnership and led to starting this interesting brand.
You're giving our age away there. Well, we met, as you say, a long time ago through our kids. So we both have sons who are 26 who are at school together. We met at the school gate, we became friends, they became friends, they're still friends. And why don't you say the story of why we decided to launch?
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Yeah. So, Nancy and I have known each other for a long time. And one of the reasons that we've stayed friendly is we have a lot of things in common, even though we're actually quite different characters. But that's another story.
That helps as well.
That's another story. But we both really love exercise. So, between us, we do Pilates, yoga, wild swimming, Bikram yoga, basketball, running, everything, weights. And so we do have wardrobes, sort of working out wardrobes with clothes that are great for doing all those sorts of things. And we just thought, why has nobody ever created clothes that have all the attributes of this working out kit, but you can wear every day, so all the things that you love about putting on a pair of leggings to work out, which is that they are incredibly comfortable. You don't need to iron them. You can just chuck them in a cold wash. You hardly need to wash them. You can hang them up to dry. It just makes life super easy. And so we took that fabric and we combined it with a kind of very luxurious hand feel. And we made some very beautiful seasonless, timeless designs. Our designs aren't meant to be high fashion. They're meant to be all the pieces that you grab every day because they just make your life easy. They make you feel good.
Yeah, your go-to pieces. So, we just got fed up with wearing our leggings all day long just because it's easy and you never change atoms. Like, hang on, I want to wear something else, but then I have to iron it or I'm going to have to wash it. I haven't got time. So this is kind of low maintenance dressing.
Yeah, it's certainly a feeling that I guess a lot of us had during the pandemic. When you get tired of all the sweatpants and leggings, you want to feel good, but you also want something that is very effortless.
Yeah, exactly. You hit it on the head.
Yeah. So one of the things that is so unique and something that you already mentioned is the fabric that you're using. Tell me a little bit about how you actually ended up finding a right partner to partner up with for this fabric, and how did you kick off the manufacturing process items?
Well, we spent a long time before we launched, probably about 18 months researching fabrics, because we are all about the fabrics. And the key points for us is they've got to feel super soft, they've got to be low maintenance and work. So the whole point is that they work in the same way that your workout gear works. So we test everything we do. So we got various different fabric samples in, made some things up. Then we chose our launch fabric, which was our signature jersey, and we started with that. We don't actually own any IPs, and the reason we don't want to, apart from the fact that it's obviously very expensive, is because it gives us the flexibility to always be looking for new fabrics and always be looking at the latest innovations, and there are some amazing innovations out there. And we quickly launched after that with our 37.5 volcanic mineral technology fabric, which is all about taking volcanic sand, which is embedded in the fabric, that keeps you at your perfect 37.5 temperature. But what they sort of work in slightly different ways, but what all our fabrics have in common is their efficacy, their low maintenance, the fact that they last a long time, they're color fast. So, you know, it's all coming from the same place. It just gets there in a different way. So yeah, I mean, we are very much a fabric-led brand, all about it. It's just, that's what sums us up, really.
Yeah, I really like the way you put it, that it's really about conceptually defining the type of fabric you want your customers to have, and then constantly looking for the best, innovative items that you can find on the market.
Yeah, and at the moment, there are amazing innovations happening. I mean, we're always looking at new things, and we're quite excited. We found some more things that we think are even more progressive that we're testing and things. So it's a moving feat. You know, we never stand still on that respect, particularly in terms of sustainability, because it's very important to always, I mean, there are lots of amazing sustainable fabrics out there. A lot of them aren't suitable for us because they're not performance fabrics. So within the performance sector, we're looking, you know, it's slightly more niche, but there are exciting things happening.
So you mentioned something very interesting, that obviously there has been so much innovation happening in the space. How do you go about finding the right one for you to test, to reach out to? Can you walk us through a little bit the process here, and maybe just the criteria that you have for picking the right fabric?
Well, I think actually for us, as Nancy said, the key thing, well, there are a couple of touchstones. So one is the feel of it. That's really important to us, because for us, you know, our clothes are meant to be worn next to the skin. That's how they work the best. So if they don't feel lovely against your skin, if they feel itchy or scratchy or just plain uncomfortable, that's not any good for us. So they have to feel really, really lovely against the skin, like a really soft, the softest brushed cotton. They also have to work. So the technical aspect is really important as well, because that's what our customers expect from us. And that's why so many of them come back to us again and again, is because once they start wearing our clothes, they think, wow, this is amazing. So the whole technical piece of it, and there are lots of different ways to achieve what we want, which is that thermoregulation, that keeping cool, that maintaining an even temperature, that staying dry even when you're feeling a bit hot and sweaty, whether it's because of the weather, whether you're rushing around, or whether it's hormones, it doesn't matter. That piece of it has to work really, really well. And then the third part of that triad is what was I going to say? So it's sustainability, the feel, and sustainability, of course. Yeah. Sorry, that's the third piece. So for us, we look at the fabrics and we think, how does this fit into our idea that we are trying to be as sustainable as possible? So as Nancy said, with fabrics in the fabric tech world, things are moving very quickly. When we started 3 years ago, the idea of using recycled polyester was very exciting for us, but we haven't used it. We are about to use it, because until now, most recycled polyester was very rough. They were things that you made into bags or you made into outer kit, and it's great for that. But now there are these very nice recycled polyesters, which are much finer. They're often mixed with other fibers to make them really, really soft, but they are definitely something that we want to use.
And I would just add to that, sorry, that polyester, and rightly for many reasons, has had a bad press, but it gives fantastic longevity to garments. And it's not just about what you make something of, it's about how long that lasts, and does it keep its shape, its color, all those other things. And adding polyester really can add to that, add to the durability of a garment. And also, all recycled materials are not the same. So when we started first looking, when we realized that you could start getting fantastically soft polyester, there are, and this is quite well known now, I think, particularly in the Far East, quite a lot of factories that claim to use recycled polyester, which it is, but it's literally, there's a bottle factory next door that makes bottles, gives it straight to the fabric mill to recycle it. So obviously we want to avoid all of that, and it all you have to do a lot of detective work to make sure that, we want to feel that we want to be transparent, tell you where we're doing what we think is good, where we can improve and trying to improve. And we do like to try and encourage customer feedback, because it's important to us to know what our customers want, and to tell us what they like about us, and if they have any ideas, they're sort of women living in the world, what they think we can add.
Yeah, one word that you mentioned there is very interesting, is transparency. And I really like the way you amplify that in your brand. And I guess one aspect that I really wanted to talk about is production locally, manufacturing locally. It's not something that a lot of brands do. Especially, I guess, in the UK, at least like a lot of brands that I spoke to, they typically try to find maybe manufacturing hubs around Europe, optimize for cost while trying to be a little bit more sustainable. You have decided from the very beginning, produce locally.
Yeah.
Why? And how are you going about that?
Do you want to go?
Okay.
I'm happy. You go.
Well, to be honest with you, at the beginning, when you're a small company and you're launching, one of the hurdles that you have to overcome are minimums. So every factory will have a minimum order quantity. So whether that's 100 pieces or 10,000 pieces really depends on the factory and where it is. Generally, the bigger your run, the bigger the minimum order is, the cheaper the price will be. So for people who are doing what is normally called fast fashion, where they're making thousands and thousands of pieces, 50,000 pieces, 100,000 pieces, then it really makes sense for them financially to work overseas with a huge factory that can give them great margins and pump things out really quickly. For us, because we're a small brand, because we're probably not, if somebody has a 15,000 minimum order, we're not going to meet that, so we're going to have to pay surplus charges anyway. It made huge sense for us to start looking locally and to actually find a factory which, fine, the price per piece might be more expensive, but the benefits of working with somebody where we can just literally, at a push, I certainly can cycle to our factory. At a push, I could walk there. In a car, it takes about 15 minutes maximum. I can walk to our sample makers. It's just...
And we live near each other, so we can walk to each other.
Exactly. We often walk to each other's houses or meet halfway in between. So it just makes everything much, much easier. So this whole process of when you're designing a garment, there's usually a lot of back and forth with samples and design ideas and notes. We can sort those all out really, really quickly because we can actually see the person, we can see the garment. We're not having to post things or courier them. Everything just works really well. So there are definitely minuses to working locally, mainly to do with the actual price per garment. But the pluses for us hugely outweigh the negatives. And I will just say that it is important to us to support our local economy. We love the fact that we know everybody that we work with, and it makes us feel good that we're supporting local industry.
Yeah, I would add to that, actually. It's very important that we have good relationships with the people we work with. And I think, there are lots of ways to, all these companies that will give you statistics on what your factory does, but we see it with our eyes. We know they have nice working practices. We know the people. We know they have tea breaks and coffee breaks, and we know the factory dog. But I think it's great to build up those relationships. And like Eileen says, as a small brand, what's great is we're learning as well. So we're able to have those conversations. It's meant that in COVID times, once our material is in the UK, we do everything within a 5-mile radius. So it means that we've actually been able to not really be affected by the world pandemic because everything is on our doorstep. Obviously our factory was closed for a while, so we're affected in that sense. But everything is so local, and we text, and it's actually really nice to feel that, it's obviously we're here as a business, but the fact that we have those relationships and we feel that we know that they treat their staff fairly, and we only ever want to support companies that pay fair wages. And I would just add, a lot of brands talk about sustainability and they talk about their fabrics, but they don't talk about, firstly, how many miles it takes to get those fabrics around the world and all the different components of a piece into wherever it's stored. But also, I don't really believe you can have truly a sustainable brand unless you are paying fair wages and the people working on your product can actually make a decent living. That is part of the sustainability process, and not many people talk about that. And a lot of our customers, they like the fact that we do that. Yes, it costs a bit more, but it's an individual choice. Everything comes at a price. You have to decide what your priorities are. And for us, that's a big priority.
It makes me happy on so many different levels.
It makes me happy too.
No, but I think it's so important to make sure that we don't neglect local communities. And I think especially in this like current world of everything being connected. I mean, obviously the pandemic has given us a little bit different perspective, but I think it's so important to not forget the local communities and making sure that we actually build a better environment for ourselves, for our children, for people who are living and working there. So to me, it just makes me so happy to see brands that are actually thinking about it from the get-go. And as you said, so many brands that are claiming being sustainable, they really forget about the labor conditions and where the items are actually produced. Because of course, one thing is when you can come by and see people who are actually making items. The other thing, when you can rely, when you only can rely on the information that factories are telling you. So I think from that perspective, like I couldn't agree more. Obviously, sustainability is such a complex topic, and I'm so happy to see that you're looking at it from different lenses.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one right way. And like we said earlier, we're not perfect. Making anything leaves a carbon footprint. We realize that, but it's just deciding what's important to us, and that's very important to us.
Yeah, and also what's achievable by us, because we are a small company, so it wouldn't make sense for us anyway to be shipping things around the world to meet gigantic minimums. And so in that respect, it works out really nicely for us that we achieve something that is important to us, as well as ticking some boxes for ourselves in terms of sustainability and ethics that are important to us.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to another big topic these days, Brexit, I assume that at least on the manufacturing, yeah, I mean, everyone is talking about Brexit these days, right? But at least I assume that on the manufacturing side, it did not affect you that much. No. But have you seen on your company, like any effects of Brexit on your company?
Yes, I don't like Brexit. Basically, sure. But basically, what's been difficult for us is importing fabrics to test and try, because as much as we'd like to source our fabrics in the UK, no one is making sustainable, performance fabrics, the kind of fabrics that we want to use. So we do import our fabrics. So that has been a bit of a nightmare, an ongoing nightmare, and sending things out. So mainly our brand is on our own e-commerce site, our website. We are also stocked on some international websites, some of them in Europe. And I would say since January the 1st, probably our sales to the EU have dropped. And I mean, for example, we have one customer who has bought quite a few times from us in France. And as Eileen said, we have a very high repeat customer rate because people are coming to us for a purpose. So this woman has bought maybe 5 or 6 times since, so she discovered us post-Brexit. But she's bought in individual, lots of small amounts. And I think that probably is to avoid paying import duty.
Yeah.
And okay, we still obviously, very pleased to have her order, but it's extra cost for us, obviously, because we're paying the shipping every time. The other thing I would say is because we are a UK made brand, I think the threshold is something like 45% made in the UK. But for us, that's easy because literally it's only the fabric that's not UK. So we're like 95% UK. So that's not really a problem. It's more a hassle filling in all the extra forms and all that kind of thing. And we don't know how much people from Europe are being put off buying from us. It is a little bit down, but maybe that will even out. I don't know.
Yeah. Are there any tips that you can share with other brands, like maybe in terms of communicating that to customers who are coming from the EU with regards to purchase experience?
I think just again being upfront about it.
Yeah.
So on the website.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing that we did was we put in our banner, Brexit information here, click here, just so that people are clear, because I think some of the stories that have been coming out have been European customers who've ordered from British brands, and by the time they get their order, whatever they've ordered, if it would cost them 50 euros, by the end of it costs them 150 with all the extra duties and VAT that they had no idea about. So I think customers don't mind. And, I'm a customer. I do a lot of e-commerce shopping as well. So as long as it's really clear what I'm going to have to end up paying, then I think that's fine. I think it will resolve itself. So, for instance, I think British buyers buy a lot from America, and obviously there is duty and there is tax that you have to pay, but it's always incredibly clear how much that's going to be. They tell you, you can pay in advance, you can pay when it arrives, this is how much delivery will cost. And so people feel secure in doing that ordering.
They know what they're letting themselves
Exactly. Whereas at the moment, because it's all changed literally overnight, I think people were caught unawares, and a few people have ended up being really stung. So once stung, twice shy. And I think,
I mean, I would just say, just thinking about it, one other difficulty for us is we're stocked in a couple of lifestyle stores in Europe, one in Berlin and one in Amsterdam. And that is obviously difficult for us because they have a small amount of our stock. But in terms of changing the stock around, that is a huge expense for us because that will be a big order going out. Yeah. Whereas our price point, if you buy 2 or 3 pieces, I think more often than not going to Europe, there's no duty to pay because of our price point. You know, it's things over a certain price that carry more duty.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense. One other thing that I wanted to talk about is seasonless design. I think that is also something that is clearly coming across if you check your Instagram or the website. The items that you produce, they're very much staple items in anyone's wardrobe. Why did you decide to go seasonless? What are the advantages, maybe disadvantages that you're seeing?
Well, I think it was actually a bit organic in the way that we designed the first collections. We really wanted them to be something that any woman would want to wear, and they were definitely meant to be keepers, as Nancy said. They're not pieces that you're going to buy. They're not a sort of amazing print, hand-printed dress that you might wear a couple of times, but then after a while you can't really wear it anymore because everyone, you know, they had to be pieces that people felt comfortable wearing season after season after season. And the way they could differentiate it is by styling them up differently. You know, you can wear, for instance, our harem trousers to bed. A lot of people buy them as sort of a PJ bottom, but you can also put a nice cashmere jumper on top and wear that for a walk with some boots. You can put some high heels on and wear it with a little top and a leather jacket, and you can go out for a drink with your friends. So it really, the whole idea was that these are pieces which are made, they're made with love, and they're made in a high quality manner. So they're meant to last a really long time. They're very durable, they're color fast, they wash really well. And so they're just meant to be the pieces that you keep in your wardrobe for years. And actually, with all of our pieces, we say that when you get tired of them, I mean, ultimately, some of them might fall apart. We haven't had any that have. You can send any pieces back to us at any time for any reason when you're tired of them. And we'll make sure that they're either recycled or repurposed, and we'll give you a discount. And that's kind of part of our idea that we want people to be a bit more mindful about what they wear. I think there's always a place.
And how they dispose of things.
Yeah. There's always a place for fabulous show-stopping pieces and, you know, pieces that you love. But that's not us. We're the pieces that we want you to think of us.
The supporting act.
Yeah.
The piece you wear on next to your skin with maybe a fabulous blouse on top, but it's the piece next to your skin, and that's why it's so important the fabrics feel so great and do their job. So yeah, it's all about how you style things up, and like Eileen says, the point is that you could buy anything, something that we made 3 years ago or in 3 years' time, and it's all sort of fluid.
When it comes to styling, do you provide any tips about how it could be styled, or is that something that your customers are coming up by themselves naturally?
You know, it's really interesting because I think everyone's different, and I've always been a bit of a fashion and beauty junkie. So if I see something in my mind, I can already see 20 ways of wearing it. But then we know that with other people, it's a much harder leap for them. So we try on our website to give ideas about how to wear things, both text in the content, in text and in images. And we've started doing these little styling tip videos where we take one piece and we dress it up in different ways, just to give people ideas, and always with things that you might have in your own wardrobe. They might be a jean jacket or a leather jacket, or just like a big you know, overshirt that you can wear as a jacket, or belt or boots, because most people have those items in their wardrobe, different colors and different sizes, sure, but they all work the same way. And I think sometimes people just need a little nudge, and they think,
oh, I've got a pair of jeans like that, I can wear it that way. But also what we try to do, and this is obviously more difficult, but you know, we do have a very engaged customer base, and we do encourage feedback. So, you know, people can email us and ask us. And sometimes we have customers saying, you know, I'm thinking of getting, what do you think? And we're really happy to do that because, you know, we love what we do. And, you know, just giving hints or tips and, you know, how you can wear different things, maybe for different sizes or different colorings, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe next time it will be some TikTok video of styling. I love those. I think I'm personally getting so much inspiration from those videos. They're always a lot of fun. When it comes to communicating with your customers, you mentioned that it's a lot about you know, building that relationship with them. Can you tell a little bit, how are you managing it, especially being still a very young and very small brand? Like how do you go about that, of building that strong relationship with your customers, knowing what they like, knowing what they, desire, how to improve that?
Well, we send a newsletter, a couple of newsletters. We slightly changed the format over the years, but I mean, just a little anecdote story that really kind of warms our hearts is that we had our 3rd anniversary last September, and one of our customers sent us a bunch of flowers, and that's when you think, oh gosh. So that was really nice, just because we just kind of said in our newsletter we're celebrating our 3rd year anniversary, and she sent us some flowers. How nice was that?
I think that actually being it was honestly, it blew us away. It was just so sweet, and it was so kind and thoughtful. And it made us think we have made a connection with people, and that feels really good. I think being a small company in this case has been an advantage, because we really do answer every single phone call, email, direct message, whatever it may be. We will always answer as much as we can, and 99% of the time we get delightful messages or questions. 1% we don't, but you know what? That's just life. But we'll always answer, because we know what it's like.
Part of the brand.
We know what it's like to be on the other end. We've all been, on the telephone when it's like somebody's keeping on hold or transferring you from department to department, or your email which goes unanswered. You have to chase and chase. And we just want to be the company where somebody can feel that they can pick up the phone or drop us a message, and they know they'll get a real person at the other end who will actually look into their own particular thing and not just give them something off a script. And in fact, it's really interesting thinking about talking off a script. We did do once live chat when we were on Dragon's Den. We decided to do live chat at the same time, because we thought a lot of people want to ask us questions, and we were right about that. A lot of people want to ask us questions all at the same time. And what I didn't realize with live chat is what they recommend is that you set up a bunch of 10 to 20 scripts. So whatever question comes up, you automatically press the button, and then quickly the script comes up. And I realize now that's why it's so frustrating dealing with companies sometimes, because whatever your question is, they give you this standard answer, which doesn't
go round and round in circles.
Exactly.
So we try to avoid that.
Yeah, so that's really not us.
And another way we actually connect with our customers is we hold focus groups. So we thought COVID was a perfect time to do it, because everybody's used to being online. It meant we could hold those groups with people. We had customers from all around the world. That was what was so great. So rather than them just being local to where we live in London, we had one calling in from Iraq, one from, where was it in the States? I think it was Tennessee. Somewhere in the States. We had, all over the UK. And that was really great and refreshing. And, all different women, all different age groups and all different backgrounds. And that was really great to see, to see our customers, but ones that we would never normally be able to connect with in such a personal way.
Was it done in a form of a Zoom call?
Yeah,
or...
exactly.
Okay, how lovely. I love that idea. It's so interesting how during the pandemic, a lot of companies started looking for ways of connecting with people.
You have to be creative, and it really makes you be creative.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also a lot of people are craving any kind of contact in these days. So hopping on a Zoom with a fashion brand, maybe it's not as weird as it would sound like, maybe a couple of years ago. And talking about the customer love, we actually been getting some comments here in the chat as well, saying that cucumber clothing is the best. Yay. So so there is that customer love there. Well, one of the things that we already talked about a bunch during this call is sustainability, right? And from different angles, and obviously sustainability is a big topic these days in fashion as well. What I would like to understand is, first of all, from your personal perspective, what is sustainable fashion?
Not fast fashion. I mean, I think that, that is the problem now, is that we're all so used to everything being quick, fast, cheap, readily available, and it's about re-educating. So that's the main thing. And a lot of high streets who push out all these, their sort of sustainable collection, if you like, they're still running the fast fashion alongside that, or they're still pushing out new designs the whole time. So that's not really sustainable either, because you're still encouraging people to, buy every day or every week or whatever it is. So I think that's the main thing. It's just about buying less and buying better. I mean, Lots of people have said that.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, as Nancy said right at the beginning, you know, if you make anything, you're creating carbon footprint. So you can't take away from that. We are manufacturers. We make things. We have a carbon footprint. You know, being alive, just being an organism on the planet means you're creating carbon footprint. But I think it's about being thoughtful about that carbon footprint. So, you know, we are now becoming more aware in the first world about the effects that our lifestyles have on the entire planet and on other countries which aren't as wealthy as ours. And I think a lot of, you know, part of that problem is the clothing industry. Everybody likes a new top. Everyone likes a new dress. And that's fine. I think that's absolutely fine. I think what's going to happen will have to be several things. One will have to be a change in the mindset of most people so that they'll try and buy less things but better, as Nancy said, be mindful. I think there will also have to be a change in the way that companies work, so that whether that's because they are doing it themselves or whether that's through government regulation or both, but I think there will have to be a push for a more sustainable way of making clothing, and whether that's to do with the process itself, whether it's to do with the materials that are used, whether it's to do with the end of life. I think all of these things are being really investigated now. It's just starting to bubble over, and I think within the next 10 years, it will really become a thing. And I think more governments will take more interest in doing more, because I think it has to come, there has to be pressure points from consumers and from government and from industry.
And I think a lot of it has been consumer led. So, I mean, you probably remember when, who was it? It was Burberry burnt a whole load of extra stock rather than, you know, putting it out on the market or whatever. And everybody was horrified by that because nobody really realized. But once that comes out, people realize. So I think it's changing mindset. And Gucci, I think, and now they've stopped their, you know, autumn, winter, spring, summer. It's more just about, you know, so for us, obviously, we're a much smaller brand, but it's about when we're ready, when there's a reason, rather than just, oh, it's spring, we must buy something new. And, you know, like we were talking before about us being the supporting act. So really what we're trying to do is you look at your wardrobe and maybe with a couple of cucumber pieces and other things, we can give more life to what you already own. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when it came to creation of your brand, what came first? The desire to start a brand, a fashion brand, or sustainability thinking? Or did it kind of happen at the same time?
Well, I think it was definitely the idea of the brand came first. But when we, last year, we looked back on our very first business plan. Yeah, Nancy's laughing because when we looked at it, we really had a laugh. But anyway, one of the nice things about it was when we looked at it, we said that it was absolutely key to us to be an ethical, sustainable brand.
As much as we could.
As much as we could. And we didn't, at the time, we didn't really know what that meant because we didn't know very much about building a fashion brand.
Job, yeah.
But we have, and it's been a really interesting journey in lots and lots of ways. And what has been interesting on the sustainable side is just how much is happening now. I mean, I mentioned earlier that there's so much fabric tech that's going on. We were lucky enough to be chosen to be on an accelerator program, which is run by Cambridge. It's called the Centre for
Sustainable Innovation,
Sustainable Leadership. Yeah, that was it. Right. Run by Cambridge, and it was a fantastic course. And one of the great things about it was they had all these really interesting projects that people were, they're not projects, they're companies.
Inventions.
And and they're run by scientists really who come to the fashion world from physics, they come from aerospace engineering, and they're looking at fashion through a completely different lens.
They've realized it's something that can be applied to fashion. They're not necessarily going and thinking I can do something for fashion, but the byproduct of what they're doing is like, wow, this would be great to be used in fashion.
To be used in fashion, because fashion can be so polluting, particularly things like leather, making leather, dyeing leather, all that kind of stuff. And they've come up with these processes which have reduced the amount of water waste, the amount of poisons going into the system. So just hearing about all these exciting ideas made us feel very hopeful for the future, because human beings are ingenious. We are ingenious.
So you're not going to stop people wanting to buy something new. I mean, you're not going to, it's a pleasure for people. They want to, you know, it's a way, particularly we've all been locked down, you know. I read somewhere, someone said, I hadn't realized how essential non-essential shops are. And it's true. You want to be able to go into places, interact with people and possibly buy things. So it's really about doing it in a more mindful way. And, you know, talking about fabrics again, I mean, a lot of people go on about organic cotton and, you know, it has its place. But again, honestly, the amount of water that uses. So, you know, you'll know about the Aral Sea in, is it Russia around there? But, you know, it's like a third of the size that it was. So, you know, we have to think, it's not just put a stamp on it, it's organic cotton, therefore it's good to buy. It's a bigger picture. You have to kind of look beyond the headlines and really know what you're doing.
And following on from that, that makes it unbelievably difficult for the consumer who is bombarded with all these messages. Organic cotton, good, bad, I don't know, I don't understand, I'm just going to buy what I always buy. So I think our advice would be, do you know what? It doesn't matter what you do, just do one thing, whether it's just thinking, okay, for my next few purchases, I'm going to buy something from my country and support the local economy, or I'm going to try and make sure that the next beauty product I buy, I can recycle it, or, you know, don't try and do everything. That's the same with us as a company. You know, when we looked at it overall, we felt really daunted thinking, how are we going to...
You'd never launch, you would never start. So you've got to start, and then you've got to just, as you go along, what we say is with every new collection, we try to be that little bit better and think about where we can make changes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I guess it's also a lot about the context itself as well, right? Because again, going back to the fabrics, organic cotton might be good for some types of fabrics, but not maybe for active.
I mean, I'm not saying anything is better or worse, but it's just the bigger picture. It's not one thing is better than anything else. Like, for example, a lot of people talk about bamboo, and that could be an amazing fabric. But again, to make it from that really rough material into the soft, lovely clothing, the chemical process it goes through is enormous. So it's, you know, you've got to, as long as you know what you're doing, you know, just know what you're buying.
Yeah. So obviously now a lot more fashion brands that are starting, they are trying to incorporate sustainability in one way or another. But I do think that sometimes it's very hard for those brands to communicate it clearly without tilting towards greenwashing.
Yes.
What kind of advice can you give to founders and fashion brands of communicating clearly what they stand for and what their brand represents and not greenwashing? Like, how do you find that?
I think it comes back to being honest again. I think it just comes back to admitting where you're not great and saying where you are.
Yeah. And just explaining what you're doing, why you're doing it, how it works, and saying that you're not perfect. And also because one of the things that's very difficult, has been difficult for us as a small brand, I'm sure other small brands suffer, well, we know other small brands suffer from this dilemma as well, which is there have started now to be recognizable certifications for all sorts of things, for the way fabrics are made, for the way that companies are run, for the way that you use water, energy, carbon emissions. And that's really great. So that they're now becoming industry standards, certifiable industry standards, which is great. The downside of that is to get certified is incredibly expensive. And so if you're a small brand, not only incredibly expensive, incredibly time consuming, as it should be. If you're a big company, that's great. You can put a team on it and you have the budget to do that. As a small brand, you have to think, well, I can either put the money towards that, or I can actually get my next collection out. And we can either put the time towards that, or we can get our PR company. Yeah. Exactly. So then it becomes a bit more binary in terms of the choice. And so that is a little bit difficult. So I think that actually as a smaller company, if you're launching a brand, it's very good to investigate all the certifications, but don't feel too worried if you can't get them straight away. It's more important, like for us, that when we go to our factory, we can see with our own eyes how people are working and how they're treated. We can see that in the summertime they have barbecues on a Friday afternoon and let everyone off work, or that if it's somebody's birthday, cake's brought in. So it feels good, and we don't need that tick. We will get it hopefully soon, but you know, it's something that we've had to push forward a bit because we just haven't had the time or the budget to do it.
Yeah, it is actually something that I've heard a lot from a lot of manufacturers, smaller manufacturers and artisans as well, that they, like, I literally spoke to an artisan in Italy, and he and his family, they've been in this business for generations, literally 4 or 5 generations, but he himself has not been able to get one of those certificates because it's just so extremely expensive and time consuming, and he's just running everything by himself and 5 other employees in the company. So despite them being in this business and actually doing things in the right way, it's still very hard to obtain that. And of course, if this is the kind of the new world we are shaping, is going to, like, a lot of those manufacturers and artisans will be overlooked for sure.
Yes, no, that is a problem because, you know, like Eileen says, it's the big companies that have the time and the money to put behind it. And they're the ones who are having to change more. So when it's kind of from the beginning, and it's, you know, what you believe and you want to do. And I'm not saying big companies don't, but it's much harder to make changes. And, you know, they're stuck in their ways. So maybe they have to go through the whole process. But it feels more genuine in small companies who've always been doing it that way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to creating that sort of sustainable or sustainability framework in your own company, are you using any of the frameworks that are available out there? Or is it something that you develop for yourself? Is it a gut feel that you follow to ensure that your company becomes more and more sustainable?
Well, I think definitely at the beginning it was gut feel. As time has gone on, in fact, this is actually a really good question for right now. So we've just at the point where we really want to have some external support in organizing our sustainability as a company, because up until now we have done it by gut feel. We've thought, okay, well, we're replacing our labels, so where do we go to find some really great labels? So Nancy found some fantastic ones, which are recycled
office waste,
office waste, which is great. When we replaced our storage bags, at the very beginning we were using just the plastic bags the factory offered. So as soon as we thought, why are we using these, we found some fantastic English bags made out of vegetable starch. They're completely biodegradable and compostable. And so because it's a small company, we have complete oversight on everything that's being done. So that works for us. But as we're growing, we recognize that as we grow larger, we need to make sure that that we are doing things in the right way, because when you're very small, it's easier to have that oversight. As you grow, you need to make sure that everybody around you also is aware of what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how you want things to be done. So we're at the moment hopefully going to get some external support doing that. But I think for companies which just launch, it's okay that you do it yourself because you're doing it. So you know it's okay. Either you know it's okay, you know it's not okay.
And also you know what's important to you, and it's your company. So, you know, do what feels right for you, and you know, like we keep saying, just be honest about it. Say, I'm doing this because this is what's, you know, you can't tick all the boxes. So tick the ones that are most important to you. And as time moves on, hopefully more of those boxes will get ticked.
Yeah, absolutely. For those who are joining us now, I'm talking to Nancy and Eileen, who are the founders of Cucumber Clothing. And we will have, at the end of this chat, we will have time to take a couple of questions. So if you have questions, please tap a small icon with a question mark on the bottom of the screen and add a question there, and then we will go through some of those. In the meantime, I had a couple of questions on my own that we haven't covered yet. One of the things that is very interesting for me as a founder, as an entrepreneur myself as well, is understanding how you build a strong team, and especially how do you maintain founder relationship. And that comes from a lot of stats. Personal experience as well, that in a lot of cases, one of the things that is most challenging for new companies is to have the right founder relationship. So can you share some tips and advice with founders who are starting businesses today?
Well, we're sitting very close together.
Exactly.
I mean, Eileen said at the beginning, although we have a lot of interests in common, we're quite different personalities. And I think that really helps, to be honest, not only in terms of our skill set, because whilst we both do everything, we have our sort of domains. You know, Alan's much more creative than me. I'm probably more practical. So, you know, in that way, it's good. And, well, I don't know. I mean, I still like her.
I think some people say it's not great to be good friends to be founders, but we've been good friends for a very long time, and it seems to work well. I think that Nancy's absolutely right. Opposites attract. It is a sort of marriage. You know, it is a sort of marriage when you're a co-founder. You are living in each other's heads.
Spend a lot of time together.
Spending lots of time together, always discussing everything all the time. It is like being in a marriage. So you need to know that you're going to be compatible. So it is good to have opposites, not only, as Nancy said, in terms of skill set. I came from a design background, she came from a communications background, so that's worked really well, but also in terms of personality. And Nancy's much more forthright, she's much more able to say what she means. I tend to be much more like, well, I think it might be quite nice if we possibly
just do it,
you know. And I'll be like, I really need to think about that design for another couple of days. I was like, have you decided?
But you know what, you meet in the middle, and that's good, because I rush things and Eileen doesn't. So hopefully between the two of us, we get the right time.
Exactly, that's right. And I think it's also the fact that we do have shared interests, that if Nancy says, look, I just really need to go do my Pilates, I'm like, just go do it. It's great. You know, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's important, that both of us want to prioritize ourselves as well. I mean, that we're not spring chickens. I'm not going to kill myself over this business. So for us, it's important also, I mean, I have a dog, I want to walk my dog, you know, so we want to fit in our lives around it. And I think we both came to this business thinking, I'm not going to work 24/7. Yes, it's a very hard work running a business, and that's great. And I'm fine with that. But I still need time for what I want to do, and Eileen needs time for what she wants to do. And in fact, we even sometimes see each other socially. But it's, so I think that's important, that we're not one of us is thinking, well, you know, being resentful of the other taking time out.
Yes, I mean, right at the beginning, actually, we had some advice from a friend who's a very successful co-founder, actually. And she said, do you know what you really need to do is you have to get a contract to make sure that everybody knows what's going to happen if this happens, or if this happens, or if this happens. And I honestly think that is absolutely brilliant advice. We've discussed all of it. We haven't actually signed a contract. We haven't got time. But I do think that is good advice, really, actually.
Because things can go pear-shaped.
Yeah.
So it's much better to decide when you're both friendly.
Exactly. You have it clear in your mind exactly what's going to happen. If somebody decides that they want to go traveling for 2 years instead, or if somebody falls ill, you know, you don't know what's going to happen in your lives. And it's good to know that you've discussed it before something happens, because you are putting a lot of time. And Nancy says we don't work 24/7. We don't, but we work, it feels like it sometimes. We work really hard. Yeah. And I think actually wrapped up in all of that is it's a mental health issue, because, you know, for me, sometimes it just is overwhelming. If we've been working just all day on a project, I just need to escape. And whether that means just going for a long walk, or doing a really hot, sweaty gym class, or going for a cold swim, it doesn't matter. I just know that I need that escape. Yeah. And it's great to know that Nancy's not going to say, wait a second, we still need to carry on. She's going to say, yeah, just go, you need a break. So I guess it's also wrapped up in the idea of just being kind to each other and recognizing we're humans, and we want it to succeed, and to succeed.
We're in it for the long term, for the long run. So I think it's better not to be too tenacious and grab it at the beginning. Just think about it as a long term.
We both have to be healthy, mind and body, to make it work, and I think we recognize that.
Yeah, I think it's very much the key, right, to getting that prenup, to all the things that could go wrong, but also being aligned on the expectations of what you expect from this company, and how can you stay authentic to yourself. And I think it is so refreshing, especially in this like hustle culture that we often see in the entrepreneurship world, which is all about just like working crazy hours and sacrificing everything.
We do work crazy hours, but we might take an hour out in the day to get to work those crazy hours.
Yeah, but it's really, sometimes I think when I just follow people, for example, from this world, it just sometimes feels like you cannot combine both being happy and fulfilled in your personal life and running a successful business, which is of course nonsense, because the majority of businesses that are around, they are run by people who are happy, and then they find the time for everything. I think it's just so important to show examples of entrepreneurs doing that in the right way. I think, for me as a founder, it's always very refreshing to see that, you know, to see those examples. We are getting a couple of questions, so I'll just start taking them one by one. So the first one we are getting here is, how do you go about adding new product categories on the website and developing that? So I guess it's really a lot about what category, what products you started with, and how did you over time expanded it to new ones?
Actually, that's a really interesting question, because it has changed a lot over time. I mean, I'll take this one because I tend to do more of the website, but so we're a clothing company. We started really as a sleepwear only company. So we had things like, I think we had dresses, trousers, 6 pieces in 2 colors. Yeah, so we had hardly any categories at all. As time went on, we became a clothing, leisure wear and sleepwear company. So more categories were added. And then we started doing more categorization, not just in terms of the actual products, i.e. tops, bottoms, dresses, whatever, jumpsuits, but in terms of the usage of the products. So be travel, you know, what to wear for travel, what to wear if you're a new mum, you know, what to wear après-gym, what to wear if you're suffering from hormones. And we've kept those categories as well. And then what's also interesting is, at one point, I think it must have been quite soon after we launched, maybe at the end of the first year, we came out with a new collection. So our original collection had all been in a jersey. Our new collection was in a different fabric. It was a woven, and it had this very pretty ruffle on it. We still have some pieces up. It's a really nice collection. And so we had as categories jersey collection and ruffle collection. And when we had a free, it was early days, we had a free website
reboot. With a man who's like, what does ruffle mean?
He said, what does that mean? Like, what's the ruffle collection? We're like, what's this really great cover? He said, it means nothing to me. It may mean something to you because you designed it, but it means nothing to me as a customer. Take it out. Have categories that mean something to anyone who just lands on your site. If it says trousers, I know what it means. If it says jumpsuits, if it says this is great,
so now
it
feels like silk, because that's what the fabric feels like.
Exactly, but we don't have a category for that anymore. It just is a description within products. So we've tried to make sure that categories, whatever they are, make sense to anyone who just lands on our site, even if it's only for 10 seconds, they know what it means.
And I think also I'd add the one important thing is always to get some outside eyes, because when you're doing it yourself, you become, so you can't see anything anymore because you live it all the time. And then somebody will say something and straight away you think, why didn't I see that? It's so obvious. So it's really important to keep checking back with people who haven't seen your site or whatever for a long time to get a fresh look at it.
Yeah, so true, so true. Next question we are getting, what are some of the frameworks and resources that you can recommend for sustainable development?
We're just investigating that now, aren't we? So I would say that I'm not sure where the person who's asked the question is based. I mean, we're based in London. So one resource that we're using is a government-backed program called London, which is all about, because at the moment the government here in the UK is really promoting a green agenda. They have this thing called the greening of the economy, and they're really pushing it in all sorts of ways.
We're hosting COP26.
Because we're hosting COP26, and on a national level as well as on a city-by-city level, they're really trying to push that forward. So London is part of that, and they have a lot of resources that we are aiming to use and we're hoping to use. And I think that wherever the questioner is based, it's probably really worthwhile looking into free resources that might be offered either by their local council, by the city, by actually the state. There are lots of things you can pay. There are tons and tons of consultants and companies that do
a whole new business around it.
It is. It's terribly expensive. You're paying anywhere from £500 to thousands and thousands of pounds to have somebody look at your company and give you that information. So obviously you can do it that way, but
I would say a good starting point actually is LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yes.
Because LinkedIn, a lot of people are posting about stuff, and just follow people who are talking about things like that, or message them. I mean, you can message us and we'll, give you advice that we're able to give. And even on Twitter, if you put in the right hashtags about, SME Climate Hub, all these kind of things, different things will come up. And it just, it might not be the right thing, but that might lead you to something else, and then you'll find the right thing. And once you find one, suddenly the doors open and you find all the others.
Yeah, and actually I should just say Nancy's right. If anybody listening and wants to ask any questions, always feel free to contact us. We'd be happy to help if we can.
Yeah, no, this is super perfect. And for anyone listening in now, we will save this video so you can always go back and write down those resources and names and reach out to Nancy Eileen directly. Talking about social media, our next question is, how do you get 1,000 followers on Instagram?
Okay, we're really not the best people to speak to about Instagram. I think we have just under 2,000 followers, so we don't have a huge following. I'd say it's engaged.
Yeah.
It's not huge because Instagram
you can pay.
You can pay.
Yeah.
You can definitely pay, and that really works because Instagram is a full-time job. If you want to do it properly, it's a full-time job. You need to be on it. I did very early on, I think, within the first 6 months of launch, I did a course on Instagram about how to get as many followers as possible. So I'll pass on what I can remember very briefly. Basically, you need to post very regularly. You need to make sure you post at the same time of the day. You need to make sure that visually everything is very attractive. So you might want to, I use something called Canva, which is a free online graphic thing, which is brilliant, which I use for our imagery. You need to be very engaged with other people that you follow, comment every day, reply to comments, reply to questions. So if you have the time to put in an hour or two every day, I don't think you'll have a problem growing to 1,000 followers quite easily within about 6 months. You can grow to 10,000 in a year if you're really dedicated. It just
it's
time management. So it's fine. There are lots of free resources as well online. I wouldn't pay for any followers because at the end of the day, they're not real. But yeah, it's the time investment. It doesn't need to cost any money.
Yeah, so consistency, clear communication, both visual and with the pause, and I guess just go for real people versus buying followers.
Exactly. And actually, again, what Nancy said about the other comment is get somebody else to look at it. You know, get people of different ages to look at it, particularly the ages of the people you're trying to attract, and make sure that it
speaks to them.
Yeah. I think we have time for 2 more questions. So the next question is very interesting. What are the funding options that a startup company like yours can explore?
I'll give that one to you.
Well, we actually haven't taken outside funding at the moment, but there are lots of, and again, it depends where this person is based, but we've been on a lot of free courses that sort of helped get us launched. So there's the Centre for Fashion Enterprise, where we did a couple of different courses, which, well, I think one was pre-launch, and it helped give us the tools and everything to start, and lots of free resources. So in terms of things that are available, we've done that. We're part of something called the London Growth Hub. So there's lots of mentorship and things like that we can do. We decided early on, so very early on, we thought maybe we did want to get funding. Fashion is notoriously very difficult to get funding in. And I think we decided then, and partly why we're growing slowly and organically rather than doing this big burst, is because as a very small company, particularly in fashion, the kind of equity you have to give away for anybody to be interested, because it's a huge risk, is so much that actually at the end of the day, if you do make a success of it, what are you actually left with? And it comes back to the question you asked earlier about the way we want to work. Neither of us want to put our lives into this to make a successful business that actually we don't have any control or don't own anything of. The whole point is it's about us. And once you start getting an outside board online, you're answerable to them. That might be fine for whoever's asking the question, but for us, that's not the route we want to go. So for the moment, we are just plowing everything back in.
Yeah, and another thing to think about in terms of taking outside investment is, of course, you know, take outside investment, you'll probably give away quite a bit of equity because you're small, you don't have any power. That's only the first round. There will be more rounds. There's the A round, B round, C round. You're going to be giving away a lot more before you properly grow, because especially with VCs, they expect and they want exponential growth. And when I think off the top of my head, 2 fashion companies that have successfully raised private investment, one of them was built on a subscription model. So it's quite different from a traditional fashion. And I think that was the catch. It was a subscription model. It was interesting. It was different. The other one, the designer already is a very famous person. And so there is that, which is very attractive anyway. But for just most brands, I think it's quite a difficult decision to make. But if you can hold off, try and get friends, family, your savings first. Yeah, definitely. Do it yourself if you can.
Yeah, and I'll also add that there are now a couple of options and companies that are giving mini loans based on revenues. So you can hook up your Shopify, Stripe. In the US, Canada, you have Shopify Capital, PayPal Capital. In Europe, there is Uncapped, Clearbank. So I would also recommend for to check that out. We have time for the one last question. I love this question. Mental health tips for founders.
Take time out. Make sure you get an hour in nature.
Yeah. Eat well,
sleep well. Try and sleep well.
Yeah, and find the thing
that makes you happy.
Yeah, find the thing that makes you happy. Find the thing that clears your mind. For me, I've realized the things that I love to do the most are the things that stop me from thinking about work or about things that are worrying me. So I like things which make me sweat a lot. I like Bikram yoga. I like cold water swimming where I'm so cold I can't think. I like to read because if I'm reading a really great book, I can't think about anything else. Whereas if I'm listening to the radio, my mind can still wander. If I'm listening on Clubhouse, my mind can still wander. If I'm, the things that really make me feel good are the things where my mind is clear. And I think
it is just about taking time out and prioritizing, and also making sure the business that you're running is a business that you believe in. Because if I didn't enjoy what I was doing, and if I felt not true to myself and what I'm doing, I think I'd resent that as well, because you spend a lot of time doing it.
Yeah. It is hard to run a business, and you have to be 100% passionate about that. Because otherwise, especially when you're feeling really low, it's going to be
and you have good days and bad days, and you've just got to
have a co-founder. A co-founder is really good, because on the bad days they're like, no, we can do it.
Well, also if you don't have a co-founder, you'll never go away. When we're allowed to again.
It is so funny because this is literally one of the first piece of advice that I give to any founder who reaches out to me is like, get yourself a co-founder. And I'm telling it as a solo founder who has been running a tech startup.
What you preach.
Yes. So it's like, sometimes I feel like my boyfriend is in a way a person I come to and I talk at just because I need someone to talk to.
Well, that's true, actually, because I think one thing that's really good about having a co-founder is when you are having a bad day, you just want to vent to someone. You don't have to give any background because they already are there. You can just say, "Ugh," and you get it off your chest. Whereas if it was my husband, I have to say, well, there's a whole story about, otherwise I'm not going to understand what I'm going on about. And by the time I've got there, I'm bored. I don't want to talk about it anymore. So it is.
Yeah, it is so true. Yeah. It is so true. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. Our hour is up. So yes. This has been absolutely delightful. And I think everyone who joined us and who will listen to this conversation later on will learn so much, because I really love the sort of all the practical advice you shared. And I have to say that I'm really impressed by the way you're building this brand, by staying true to yourself and the principles and kind of looking at things from different angles. Just building things that will last, building things in a way that are good for the community and for people who are using them. So big thanks and big kudos to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Yeah. So for everyone who is still with us here, please tune in next Wednesday as well. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. We go online live with a founder or a fashion entrepreneur, and we talk about everything D2C, fashion, sustainability. So tune in. And Nancy and Eileen, thank you again so much. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful evening. And I'm really excited to follow the journey that you're on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.